right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a real agent that texted me the other day, and she wanted me to help her with a listing presentation for her landlord. And basically the address was 417 West Franklin in Waxahachie. And so the first thing I told her to do is to log into MLS, and I like to start at the beginning with everything. So matrix.netris.net, and this is your login. And when you log in, your screen will go to the squares, and we should know by now that we're going to hit the one in the left corner, Netris Matrix, and this gets us into our dashboard. So the easy way to always look for a property to get going is to see if it was ever in the MLS before. So I've said it a number of times. I love this little box here. You can move it wherever you want it. Okay. I'm going to go right here and just go 417. And even though it's West Franklin, I don't care about the direction. I'm just going to go Frank. And I'm going to hit enter and see if it was ever in the MLS before. So I can see it's not. So I've got to find it in the tax roll, and this would be easy if it showed up, because I could just click on the MLS number and I'd have everything right there at my fingertips. So now I have to do a little bit of work. So I'm going to hover over the search square and go to public records. And when I go to public records right here, I'm going to type in 417 and I'm going to go Franklin. And at the bottom, you can see just with that basic 417 and Franklin, that at the bottom, I have 4 matches. Okay. If it was 2207 Dallas Drive, 2207 Dallas, you can see that there's 1 match. If it was my address, 8005 Fall Meadow, you can see there's 1 match. So that's always going to be an easy way to find the property, and it's going to be search public records. So we're going to go for it. 417 Franklin. There's 4 results. I'm going to hit results, and you can see that here I have 4 properties, and here I have the cities, and there it is right there. It says Waxahachie. I'm going to click on the property ID number, and that gives me the tax roll. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and copy the seller's name, which will be my landlord. I'm going to keep this page up, and I'm going to basically look at the subdivision name, which is weird because it just says town, and that's not going to be anything good to really search for a CMA. So I'm going to hover over the top. I'm going to go residential lease detailed. That's going to be after I printed this form, because this is the tax roll. Okay. And you can see that up here, it says last listing, and it's not highlightable where I can link it. Okay. So I'm going to print this so I have it. And then I'm going to go search residential lease detailed. And again, this is a search criteria for a tenant, but I'm doing a listing. So I need to select all in the left corner, go down to pending and closed, and change it to 0 to 180 days. And then up here, because the subdivision was weird, it was just called town. I'm going to go ahead and type in 417 West Franklin. I'm going to see if it auto-populates. I'm going to put a comma and put Waxahachie. As I start to type it in, you can see it auto-populates. I'm going to select it, and I'm going to go 2 miles. You can see that 2 miles from this address, and then here I'm going to go ahead and type in Waxahachie, that there's 48 matches. That's probably too many, so I'm going to go a mile. And there's 21. And now I'm going to unselect coming soon, canceled, expired, hold, and withdrawn, because I think those are the best ones. And you'll see that there's still 17. I'm going to hit results, and I'm going to have a list of all the properties. I'm going to check the box above the first one And as soon as I do that, every one of these highlights, and I'm going to go to quick CMA, and it's going to tell me a CMA of what I could probably list the home for. So you can see that these are active because right here it says active, and there's 4 homes. So we range from 1,300 to 2,700 based, it looks like, on the square footage, which is a pretty big, you know, sway there. 2,100 square feet. There's one that's 800. And then here there's one that's pending. It was 1,800. And then you go down here and you've got all these properties that have actually closed. Okay. So if I go back and I pull up the tax roll, because I want to find out, I would have printed it in real life, but I want to remember what the square footage is. Let me show you where to find that. Okay, that's the tax roll. There's my 4 matches. I hit results. I hit on the property. And then if I scroll down, you can see that, hold on. You can see that right here it says total building square footage, 3,374. Okay, so that means it's a pretty big home. All right, so now I go back to the CMA and I look down here and you can see that the square footage, I mean, this one is 5,500 and it's still leased for 1,250. So that's where you're going to tell your client, hey, what are you thinking on price? And they go, oh, I was thinking about $2,000. And that's where you go, boom, let's do it. You don't even argue. Okay. Because nothing has leased over $2,000 in that subdivision. All right. So far I printed the tax roll and I've done a CMA. And really, I'm going to print those. And the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to ZIPFORMS. And when I go to ZIPFORMS, the website is texasrealestate.com. I'm going to log in. It's going to say, hi, Samir. Hi, Doug. Hi, Allie. Hi, Elaine. Hi, Jacqueline. And then I'm going to hit ZIPFORMS and the screen turns blue. When the screen turns blue, I only have to hit one button. It's the new tab. It's right here. And I'm going to have 5 boxes that come up. This is for a seller. This is for a buyer. And this is for a tenant landlord. So I'm going to click on it. And I'm going to go ahead and name it and just paste the seller's name. I'm going to always select the dot next to residential. And then right here it says select template. And I'm going to hit tenant/landlord. I'm going to hit save at the bottom. It says rent-free tenant screening is required. Hit no and hit save. And the next screen you're looking at our white summary tab. And all I'm going to do is go 2 tabs over to documents. Now, for listing for lease, I need to know what year the home was. And here you can see that the home was built in 1958. So we should know we need a lead-based paint. So basically, just to reset, I printed the tax roll and a CMA. I'm going to go ahead and open up the IBS, and I'm going to always go in new form editor. It's going to open, and here's the IBS pre-filled. There it is. And then down here, I'm going to go ahead and scroll down and go, I need the listing agreement. And I need lead base. So there's lead base. And I keep scrolling. And there's the exclusive right to lease. So now I have 3 documents there. And I just start scrolling down. And if you'll notice, I've already got the lead-based paint filled. But you're representing the landlord. And right here, this says landlord. Not buyer or seller. That says landlord. And I've marked the second box in both already for you, because this one says the landlord has no knowledge of lead, and this one says they have no reports. So almost always that's going to be the case. But what you're going to need to do is unmark the tenant one, because the agent bringing the tenant is going to fill that part out, if that makes sense. And you're going to print this form. You're going to put the address at the top. So 417 West Franklin. Okay. And this is going to uncheck mark the tenant part, because you don't know the tenant is going to have to, the tenant agent is going to have to check mark one of those. You're going to print this form. So you printed the tax roll, a CMA, the IBS, and print the lead base. You can see that down here it says that you need to sign. So you're going to have the landlord sign at the listing, and then you're going to sign. It says listing broker / agent. So that's you. Okay. And then you just keep scrolling. And here you have the listing agreement. So what we're going to do is fill this out real quick. I'm going to paste the landlord's name. I'm going to look at the tax roll. And if you'll see, right here is the legal description. So I'm going to copy and paste it. And I'm going to paste it right here because it's the longest line. And then I'm going to use it kind of like a cheat sheet. Lot 2, block 79, town, and I'm going to capitalize, town 0.15 AC, and that means acre, 0.15 of an acre. Okay. City of Waxahachie, county Dallas, and then it says known as, and I'm going to delete that and put 417 West Franklin. Okay, I'm done there. I'm going to go to the second page, or the bottom of the first page. It says that, hey, we're interested in a lease from 12 months to 48 months. Let's say he decided on $2,000. Let's say that I'm meeting him on Saturday. I'm going to look at my calendar and I know that that's the 6th. So I'm going to pick it. And then I'm going to hit here and I'm going to go probably 4 months out and pick the same date. That's up to you. I'm going to go to the second page. The second page, already pre-filled, says that you are going to explain to the landlord that the first month's rent will be eaten and that you'll make 50% of that, and the agent that brings the tenant will make 50%. That's not across the board. I don't have any protocol on that. So let's say that Samir goes, you know what, I'm going to do 80%. All he does is change it. And that means that either he's going to do 50 and offer 30, or he's going to do 40 and offer 40 in the MLS. I just like to do 100 and explain to the landlord that that will be the way the home gets leased the quickest, because 50% of 2,000 is 1,000. And that makes it worth it for the agent to bring the tenant with gas driving around. But ultimately, if the landlord says, hey, would you do it for less? That's an individual decision that you don't have to run by me. You only pay me $50 for a lease. So you do whatever you're comfortable with. I've pre-filled 3%. And that says that if landlord agrees to sell the property by written or oral agreement to a tenant procured by you, not no later than the time the tenant vacates. So that means the end of the lease. That means that you're protected on getting 3% of the sales price. So that's in there kind of as a, to protect you in case your tenant becomes a buyer, that you're representing the seller and that you're going to get 3%. Everything else is pre-filled. You don't have to touch anything. It's crazy, but you don't. Now, let me explain this paragraph 7B. If I templated your forms more than a year ago before we got Broker Bay, your form right here says CSS. You can just do this and put Broker Bay or listing agent. And that just means how you're going to have the appointment made, because it depends on the situation. If Samir, I go meet him at a vacant home and he's like, yeah, this is my second home, I'm ready to get rid of it. And he goes, just show it at will. Well, then I'm probably just going to have people text me. I'm not going to use CSS because that costs $40. I could probably use Broker Bay because that's free. And that's why I would argue that probably the way you want to go is Broker Bay. I've already told you a number of times the phone number. You can Google it. Broker Bay's phone number. They have an app. It's a free service, but you do have to call them once you input the listing. You have to give them the listing MLS number and the contact information for either you or the landlord. And then you tell them it's a go and show. And if that's the case, it's vacant, you can put a combo or you can put a Supra. If there's a human being in the property, you need to put a Supra for security. And again, broker bay is free. So I think that more and more people are using broker bay, and all you do is call them and say, hey, my name's Elaine. I have a property I need to give you the showing instructions on. I've already put it in MLS. They're going to ask you the MLS number. You'll give it to them. They'll pull the property up. You'll give them the seller's name. They'll say, do you want a call or a text? You'll tell them probably text. And then you'll tell them the showing instructions. Either it's an appointment, it's a go and show, there's a dog, it'll be in a crate, take your shoes off, turn the lights off, and lock all doors on exiting, something like that. Everything else is pre-filled. There's 50% of the 100. So in the beginning, remember I showed you 100% right here? Okay, that 100 is split. And this is saying that you're going to give 50% to the agent that brings the tenant. This has already got intermediary authorized. So let's say that you put a sign in the yard, and before you get home, somebody calls you and says they want to look at it. You flip a UE and go back and show them. We authorize intermediary in the listing agreement. So that means that if the tenant meets you and they like you and they don't have a realtor, all you have to do is get an IBS and a buyer rep filled in. The buyer rep is already pre-filled with intermediary. And that means that now you're okay with an intermediary. And then there's one more form I'll walk you through that you'll get signed. And that way you could get 100% of the first month's rent. You'd be the only agent. That's called intermediary without appointments. And I'll walk you through it all. And you only pay $50, even though you're working both sides. So this is completely done. All right. So you're going to print it and you're basically done. And now you go to their house on Saturday morning. In your car, you should have a sign and a key box. You knock on the door, they open it. You're like, hey, I'm Samir. Hey, I'm Doug. Come on in. And Samir's the agent. In the foyer, he's like, oh, what a beautiful house, Doug. Well, what's going on? What's your story? Oh, well, this is my second home. We're ready to get it leased. It's vacant. So really, you can show it at will. Well, cool. Show me around a little. So as I show him around, he's commenting on the house. And then at some point, I'm done showing him the house. And he says, why don't we grab a seat in the kitchen and I'll show you what I got. And we sit down in the kitchen and he has a file. And possibly when he opens it, he has a little packet on himself. And he's like, hey, Doug, this is just a little packet on myself. It's got my bio. Is just some propaganda about me. And he turns it over and he has the IBS. And he's like, this is a form required in the state of Texas that I give to you in person. It's just a disclosure. And he flips it over and he goes, this is the tax roll showing that you're the owner. And he flips it over and he goes, this is a CMA of everything that's been leased in the last 18 months or 6 months. And remember we talked a couple of days ago, you said 2,000. Are you still comfortable with that price? And I go, yeah, I think we're good with that. He's like, okay. So he turns over the CMA and there he has the listing agreement. And on the listing agreement, he goes through it. And this is about how I go through it. I go, there's your name at the top. This is my broker information. That's the legal description of the property. We said 2,000. I imagine we're looking for a year to 4 years or more. And that can all be negotiated when we get a tenant. I have a listing beginning today. And again, I'm good if you are, Doug, because I have my sign and key box in my car. If you're good after we go through this, then all we're going to do is initial it and I'll put my sign and key box and probably in 30 minutes, I'll have it in the MLS. You get showings today. And I'm like, sounds good to me. And he goes, here, this shows you how I get paid. And I go, tell me how that works. Cause I'm a little unfamiliar with it. And Samir goes, well, we're going to list it for 2,000. And when a tenant agent brings a tenant that likes the property, I'm going to tell them they need to fill out a lease application and I'm going to send it to them or they'll pull it up and give it to their tenant. Their tenant will fill it out and they'll send it to me. When they send it to me, I'm going to charge them $50 per over 18-year-old because they all have to fill out an application if they're over 18. I'm going to have the credit run and the criminal background of that person. And then I'll get back with you and I'll send the information to you and you can ask me any questions and then we'll make an informed decision whether you want them as a tenant. If you want them as a tenant, then I'm going to send them a lease. And when they sign it, that's when they'll send 2 checks over. One check will be made out to my broker, DHS Realty, for the first month's rent. So it'll be $2,000 made out to DHS Realty. That is how the agents get paid. I'm going to get 50%, and the agent that brings the tenant gets 50%. At the same time I receive that check for the full month's rent, I'm going to receive a check equal to that for the security deposit. That'll be made out to you, Mr. Landlord, and you'll put it in your account. And then when the tenant moves in, the second month through the 12th month, that rent will just be made out to you. So you're really going to, in all actuality, you're going to lose the first month's rent, and that'll be the cost of, doing business with me. I'm going to fully represent you. I'm going to make sure that we do credit runs, we do criminal background, get all the accurate forms done. I'm going to get a locksmith in to change the locks when the tenant moves in, put a peephole on all exterior doors that are wood framed with no window. We're going to check the smoke detectors, and I'm going to make sure you're, good to go as a landlord. And we keep going. And I mean, usually there's, I just say, this is all kind of boilerplate. I'm going to put in the MLS. I'm going to, probably stop here and ask them how they want to be communicated with. Do you want to know about every showing, or do you want me to know about it? And generally the landlord goes, yeah, I'd like a text message if that's okay. Boom, you're done. I'm going to put a key box on the front door. That's what that says. There's 50% of the 1 month's rent going to the tenant agent. And I don't even cover intermediary unless they ask. If they go, what's intermediary? I just look at the landlord and go, do you want as many agents showing it as possible? And they go, yeah. And you go, that's all that says. And then you keep going, because that means that every agent from our office can show it. And then basically when I get to the bottom, I'm like, this is basically it. And I look at the landlord and go, you feel like you're ready to move forward? And if they give me some body language, like, yeah, then I'm like, okay, cool. I'm going to go grab my sign and key box. If you look for a spare key and start initialing, I'll come back in and tell you if you missed anything. I'll take your spare key, put it in a key box. I'll put it on the front door. I'll put a sign in the yard. And by the time I shake your hand to leave in 30 minutes, I'll have it in the MLS. And maybe you take some pictures with your iPhone. Maybe you see if they want to take some pictures and email it to you, and you're locked and loaded. Now, the one thing that I'll tell you is that we searched and the home was not in the MLS. Okay. So that means that when you're here on these documents, if you scroll down, you're looking for a form that says residential lease data input, and you add it. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you why you want to print this. Now, these forms you want to print just single page. But when you get to this form, you want a double page because it's 18 pages. And what this is a cheat sheet for you if the home was never in the MLS before. Because everything right here that's bold printed, that's search criteria. And it needs to be filled in. And it's perfect because while you're there, you can, with a pen, check mark and go, oh, that's single family. Oh, it's a brick home. Oh, it's pre-owned. Oh, yes to pets. And some of this you don't have to fill out, but try to fill out as much as you can. You go here, fill in the address. While you're at the house, ask the landlord what the school district is. Ask the landlord what the schools are. Fill them in with a pen. While you're there, count the bedrooms, count the baths, count the levels. While you're there, count the living rooms, the dining rooms, if it's a 2-story or a 1-story. And then you can measure with your feet or a tape measure. Oh, okay, the master, it's on the first floor. Its length is 18 by 15. And then over here, you can check mark. Oh, it has 2 baths. It has a dual sink. It has a medicine cabinet. And then you just keep going, okay? It's 18 pages, so it'll keep you busy. And you can ask the landlord any questions while you're there, okay? You've got additional rooms. You can go through this page. And that way you have it. It's not necessary that you load it in back agent, but it is a great form. Okay. All right. So now you go back home and let me show you quickly how you would enter it in the MLS. So here we are, and you have that form next to you. And what you're going to do is you're going to log into MLS, and you're going to go over here to input, and you're going to hit new, and you're going to hit lease. And here, you're going to hit from the realist tax. And here, you have to select the county. And then here you type in 417 Franklin and see if it comes up. You can see it didn't. So street type. So now what you can do is you can see that we're going to have a problem pulling it up. So it's Franklin Street. All right. So you just kind of mess around with it. Franklin Street. And what was the county? Let's make sure. Back to the, sure it's Dallas. It's Ellis, that's why. Okay, so it's Ellis County. So right here, I'm going to select Crockett and type Ellis real quick. And now I'm going to take out the street and see if that pulls it up. Okay, there it is. All you do is hit fill. And now you're at your input. Okay, so this is you inputting the listing. And if you'll notice that this mirrors this, and that's why you have it. Okay, so what I tell people to do is you go all the way to the status, you hit active and hit submit. And what happens is every one of these tabs with a red exclamation mark, you've got to make that red exclamation mark go bye-bye. So you start left, everything yellow has to be filled in. Okay, well, look at that property subtype, single family. Look at this. Look at this first page here. Look right there. Property subtype, single family. Okay, now we go back. Look at this, housing type. Well, when you go here, you'll see it right here, housing type of house. Okay, so it mirrors it and it'll just make it easy for you. Here, you put in the price, 2,000. Here, you'd put in the list date, today. And then you hit OK. Everything yellow has to be filled in. Like here, it says architectural. You'd scroll down and most likely pick traditional. Okay. When you're done with all this page at the bottom, you hit submit. And if you hit it correctly, that red exclamation mark goes away. And then you just go to the next one. Well, here's location. Remember, we just talked about the schools. And you will see that you have a bunch of options. So that's why you ask the seller. If the seller doesn't know, there is a search site where you can search for the address of the house and it'll tell you the schools. Okay. But that pretty much is a good training for working with a landlord. And I've got 2 minutes to spare. So at this time, if you have any questions, go off of mute and ask me. And if not, I'll see y'all tomorrow for Cinco de Mayo and we'll do a little Mexican food at noon. Everybody good? All right, y'all be safe. Thank y'all for joining in. It makes me happy. See you soon. Any questions, call me. Bye-bye.